Okay, gewaltig. So yesterday we learned the sugya of Ma'aseh Bezdin Yachzer. We chazed over a little bit. Shmuel's halacha of the Chashin l'Chadin l'Piroyin. Ah, the morning Lati. And we got into the halacha of Huchsa Kafrin because the Gemara tried to ask a kasha on Rabbi Vo. Rabbi Vo says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that a moichi star choyfeshuk af al pisha kosa by hemkik lo yachsir lebailim. You're not supposed to give it back to the bailim. So the problem was the Brisa says kol ma'aseh bezin harei yachsir. So the Gemara said, you know when it says kol ma'aseh bezin harei yachsir, that's if the loiva is a huchsa kafrin. So even though he's denying and saying that's not a legitimate star, he's a huchsa kafrin, he lost his nemanas. Which takes it to the second to the bottom line on daf tezayin and base, the kafrin. Now that we're on the subject of kafrin, hoil v'asad liadon, name a bay, we're going to say in the halach of kafrin, milsa, a vort, the Amar Rabbi Yosy bar Minyumi Amar Rab Nachman. Amar loy. What if they told the loiva tzei teinloi? Morning. So tzei teinloi is the strongest nusach of a psak of bezin. You must give him the money. It's kapaskas. The Amar, and then he said paraiti. He said after a little while, he said, I listened to bezin. I already paid up. The loch is nemon. He is nemon, and therefore he makes a shvusesis, and he doesn't have to pay again. What if the malva wants to write an adrachta because he claims he didn't collect? You don't let him write it because we believe the loiva to say that he paid already. But if Bezin didn't say tzeitain loy, the Bezin just said chayiv atalitalei. You're chayiv to give him, but they didn't actually tell him to go do it. Thank you so much. Oh, Monty gave it a kick this morning. Oh, okay. But if he says chayiv atalitalei, which is more of a shvacher nusach, so then the Amar Paraiti and the loiva said, I already paid. Einay Nemon, there he's not believed to say that he paid because Bezin weren't really mechayiv him and ganzen yet. Bo malva lichtoiv, and therefore if the malva says that he's owed the money still, and now he wants an adrachta to be able to seize property from the loiva, koisvin v'noistim loy, the Bezin will write that for him. Rabbi Zvid mishmed Rab Nachman Amar. Rabbi Zvid in the name of Rab Nachman said, Bein seitain loy, whether or not Bezin said seitain loy, which is the strongest nusach of time to pay, bein chayiv atalitin loy, but for Amar Paraiti in a little while later, the loiva said, yes, I followed the instructions of Bezin, I paid already. Nemon, he'll be believed. Bo malva lichtoy, therefore, if the malva wants to write on the drachta, ain't koitzim v'noistim loy, they don't let him because we believe the loiva that he paid up. Since he's not making a difference between seitain loy and chayav atalitin loy, Rab Zvid is saying, but there is some place to be mechalik. Hachi hu the ikal flugi. This is where you can make a distinction. Amr loy, if they told him seitain loy, pay, the Amr paraiti, and he said, I paid already, and then va'idam eid noise shloy parai. So now he is contradicted. The Adam said, as Rashi explains, in front of us, the Malva told the Leva, please pay up, as the Bezin said you must. And he refused to. So since in front of these two Adam, he was willing to ignore the Tzivoy the Bezin, that shows he's a scoundrel. And therefore, therefore, he won't be nemon to say, yeah, then I didn't pay. But later on, I did pay. No one saw, but I did pay. He's not believed. You know why? Because he's huchzak kafrin la'isam. As Rashi says, she'ein neman oidolov. He's no longer neman loimer chzarti paraiti achi yiframed. So this is a very interesting case. He didn't lie. He didn't lie. What happened was Bezin said say lie, and then the Malva went to the left. Okay, so Bezin said say maybe you're going to pay up. And he said, no, I'm not paying. I'm absolutely not paying. That's not a kfira. That's not a denial. He's just refusing to pay. Once that happens, he's showing us that he is not listening to Bezdin. If later on he says, I paid you already, when there was no Edom around, we don't believe him. Because here's a guy who has no interest in paying. He's trying to get out of it. Pulse the Kafran, I would have thought, is since he once lied about it and he denied it, we don't believe him anymore. But the way Rashi is describing the case, he did not lie about it. He refused to listen to the best. So Dr. Gemara, but if they just said Chayav Atalitnoi, the Omar Paraiti, and he claims that he paid already. And Adam said, oh, I made a mistake. He did say Paraiti the first time, and he was contradicted. So I apologize. The whole thing was a mistake. He said Paraiti. He said Paraiti, and therefore I'm refusing to give it again. Okay, I'm sorry. So he was host of Kafrin. But if they only said Chayavat Lit Loivama Paraiti, Ve'edim Eid Noise Shaloi Para, V'chazar V'ama Paraiti, there Lahuch to Kafrin Loisimon. He's not host of Kafrin. I Lamaisi denied. He said he paid. My timer is the Mutehu the Kamishtamet Minei. Since he didn't say Chayiv, since they only said Chayiv Atlit best, they didn't say Tenoi, so they didn't actually seal the deal yet. And therefore, he's hoping that he's going to push it off, but once they say Tenoi, he really was going to pay. So that's we don't make him into a liar that way. Sover Adam Aina Berabana Bedini. The Bezin still has to finalize and put the final stempel on the psak. Until then, I'll come up with the money. So now I'm going to push him off. So he's not really a denier who's trying to steal money. He's only avoiding to pay now because Bezdin didn't come out with their final psak. Amar Rabba Bar Barchana Amar B'Yochanan. Manali B'Yot. Reuben goes and tells Shimon, you owe me $100. If a lawyer, Shimon says, Ein Loch B'Yodi Klum, I owe you nothing. Well, Adam and Adam are here that say that Shimon borrowed $100 from Reuben. And then the Chazav of a Paraiti. And now Shimon says, yeah, Adam said I borrowed, Ataka borrowed, but I paid it back already. He is not believed on this moment because he already falsely denied that he didn't owe the money. It's just like the story of Shapsoi, the son of Rabbi Marinus. He wrote in Nadan, Chalsei is his daughter-in-law. He wrote a Nadan to his daughter-in-law, Itztilal de Milsa, a beautiful beged. Milsa, I believe, is silk. What does he say? Sorry? It's a fine wool. So he said he's going to give this beautiful wool garment, Kesuba, on behalf of her Kesuba. The Kibla Alei, and he was Mekabel Achiv upon himself to give that beautiful beged. And what happened was, Irchas Ksubasa. This woman lost her Kesuba. So now she has no proof about what she's supposed to get. Omar, he said, he denied it. I never gave you nothing. I never promised anything. So he's denying that he owes this itztala. Also Sahadi, Adam came along. V'amri in, Kasavla. You did write it. We saw the star. We saw the Kesuba. And you were mechayiv to give yourself an itztala. You're denying it false. L'soif, then he said, Amrlu Pratia, I already gave her the itztala. So Asla Kamed Reb Chia, they came to Reb Chia. Amalei Hochsika Kafran, Lo Isa Itztala. You are already a kafran for this itztala, you denied it. So Shapsoi was ruled against, and you will have to come up with the itztala. Amar Rab Avin, Amar Beloi, Amar Bechah. Hayachayev l'chaver shvu. Someone was chayev to make a shvua to his friend. So let's say that the case was that he was a moed b'miktas, so he's chayav shvu. And then he didn't make the shvu yet, and the Baldin drags the bezin and says, "No, make your shvua." And he said, "Nishpati, I swore already." Where I don't know where he swore. He swore already. But Adam said, "No, he never swore." Now he's considered a kafran l'gabe that shvua and he's no longer believed ever to say that he swore. As Rashi says, we have to demand that he swear in front of us. So they sent the story over to Bava. And Amar Lu, he said, Mistaver Milsa de Rabavin. The svara is that Rabbi Avin only said that he's a hochta kafrin for a shvua, and therefore he has to make the shvua again. Ishen ischayiv shvua bevest. That's if he had a chiv shvua bevest, like a moed b'miktas. There's a Rashi the kivin the tavoi be'edim l'kaim divrei bezdin v'lo'ava. Since there's a chiv bezdin was mechayivim to make a shvua, Edim came to tell him you must make the shvua, and he refused to. There he's considered the hochta kafrin. Therefore, he's not believed to say at a later date he swore already. Let's say he just on his own said, I'll swear to you. But it wasn't a chiyuv shvua that Bezdin was mechayivim, but he undertook to make a shvua. The halacha is there if he denied it, he's not a hochsa kafir. Nema, do you know why? Ovid inish the mikri v'amar. It happens that someone will do that, and it doesn't make him into a ganav. Zokt Rashi, he on his own said, I will swear to you. And then he mocked with Edom, and he refused to swear. And then later he said, no, I swore already. Then when he's believed, even though we already saw that he denied it in front of Edom, so he should be hochsa kafrin even for his own personal shvua. Zokt Rashi, people will sometimes say that. If it's something that Bezdin was mechayiv me, of course I'm going to do it. But this is something that I personally accepted. I'm not going to do that for you. We don't consider that lying and refusal. We just consider that it's a dichoy ba'alma. Why? Because it's not such a serious. So this story came to Rav Avin. Because what happened over here was Rabbi Vo was clarifying Rabbi Avin's halacha, and he was saying, "Where does Rabbi Avin say he's a hochta kafrin? That's only if it's a shvua that Bezdin was mechayim. But if it was his own personal chiyuv, there Rabbi Avin didn't say his halacha. So it got back to Rabbi Avin what Rabbi Vo said about him, and the Amalu he said, "You know what? You are right. Rabbi Vo understood my halacha properly. Anon nami bebezdin amri. It's exactly what I meant. I only meant that if someone had a chiyuv shvua bebezdin and he became hochta kafrin." There he's not believed anymore. But in fact, like Rabbi Avin said, that if it was a personal shvua that he was mechayiv himself, they wouldn't have that halacha. It might not. If someone was mechayiv is shvua to his friend in Bezdin, he said, I swore already. But and Edom contradict him. He's a hochsa kafrin lois shvua, the same halacha, and therefore he's no longer believed ever to say he swore already. If someone found the star chayv in the shuk, the cost by hempik, so that we know the halva occurred and we know it's a legitimate star. But the cost of boys manoi boy bayoy, the date of the hempik is today. So we're always worried shema cost of lil voice for lava, and you're going to end up monning a chi of a shibud from earlier than it was really mishubit for, right? But here, the date, we don't have that problem because the date on the star is today. So there is no risk that we're going to mun from the kuchais too early because this is the day. I don't think these things are time stamped. So the luck is. So the shiva didn't happen. I guess we're not worried about that. So yachziru l'bailam. What are the chances? And that's what the Gemara is going to say in a moment. That he borrowed money and he paid it back already. Right? So yachziru l'bailam. Imishum kasav lil voice for lava. What's that?
Story for the Rav. The speech he wanted.
What's that?
That story you said about the Rav. He wanted to board money just.
Oh, that's right. Oh, maybe that's it. Imishum kasav lil voice for lava. If you want to suggest that we need to be concerned that halva did not occur yet, hakasav by hempik, we know for sure the halva occurred because once Bezdin writes hempik, it means they verified that halva occurred. Imishum peroin, and if you're worried that maybe it was paid off already, lepriya b'ashem cheshina. We're not choshish that someone paid back on the same day that he borrowed the money. Amar Reb Zer Rasi, mi Amar Reb Yochanan Hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan say that no one ever pays back a chayiv on the day that they borrow it? Ha'atud amrit mishmei Rabbi Yochanan. You yourself said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Shtar shalavaboy uparoi. If you use the star and you borrowed money with it and you paid back, that star is now expired. You can no longer reuse that star. Why? The shibu that was in the star is expired. So where was it relevant, this halach? Amos, when are you trying to reuse the star? If you're planning to use it the next day, it doesn't mean a day of chara. It means it's a shortened form of tomorrow. The kids are sorry for him. So why do you need the svara of pranim chal shibudai if it's for the next day? Even if it wasn't in chal shibudai, typically it's a star muktam. Vitnan shtarei chayva muktam psulim. It's a star muktam if you're using it the next day. Ella, the discussion is you borrowed money with a star, you paid it back today, and you want to borrow again with the same star because it's properly dated. Ella v'yoyme. From the fact that we're entertaining such a shaila, alma pari in shibiyome. So you see, people do pay back on the same day. Amerlei. So he answered him back, Mi kamini delay pari klal. I didn't say that it never will happen that someone will pay back a choiv on the same day that he borrowed it. What I said was inchi de pari biyome kamina. It's not shchiach, and therefore, if you find your star, you can give it back because you don't have to worry that it paid back. It's very unlikely that it happened. But if you know for a fact that it happened, of course there's going to be a problem. Rav Kahana says, Kishachayiv Moida. Hadam Rabbi Yochanan Yachzer L'Bailim. That is Rabbi Yochanan said that Hamochi Shtar Choy B'Shuk, Chazal B'Hendik, Yachzer L'Bailim. You know why you give it back to the Bailim? It's Kishachayiv Moida Shaloi Pora, where the loiv is Moida that he didn't pay it. Frek Gebar Yihachi Bailim Ebra. What's the chiddush that you give back a star if the loiv is moida that he didn't pay it? Maybe he really paid it off. And the reason why he's saying and he's agreeing to the mal, but he didn't pay off, because he wants to use it again. He wants to use the star again. And he doesn't want them to passel the star. Why does he want to use the same star again? Because it costs money. It costs $20 to have a cipher write up a star for you. Maybe he just wants to maintain that star so that he doesn't have to write a new star, but the loiver really wants to use this star for another alva. You might have thought that. And therefore, even though he says it's a legitimate star, we shouldn't give it legitimacy. Zok Gemara, Kamash Alon, that no one would ever do that. Why would the Malva be willing to lend somebody money when the star is not a good star? I'm risking my ability to be able to collect the money. Savar, the Malva would be afraid. Shami Berabonon, the Rabbanon are going to hear that we reuse the star, and now this is a star Shanim Chol Shibude, and then I won't be able to collect from the Chosim Ushabodim, Umavsidili. I will never be able to collect from the Kuchais. Mishum the story Chayv HaMakdonim Ptulim. This is a possible star. The Kivin the Haida Ukmahachi, lest like Eda B'Chsubin Zachaloi. This sheet doesn't hold, like Abaya said, of Eda B'Chsubin Zachaloi. Av Zem and the Makdonim. The star Muktim, it's not going to be a good star, and I'm risking it. I'll demand a new star. Zok to Gemara. We had a case earlier where we weren't chayshut for that. Ma'ishno mehadetnan. Mata story chayiv. We had the Mishnah a little bit earlier. You found the star chayiv. Im yesh b'achayis nechasim lo yachzir. Vukim. Now we said the Mishnah speaking keshachayiv moida. And why don't you give it back? Im yesh b'achayis nechasim umishum shema kasav lo vosh v'nisan v'lo lavat tishrei. And therefore also limited to the kuchas. Minisla batishrei. So like you did, right? That was the whole problem. Maybe the star is dated 6 months ago, but the halva only occurred today. And when the Malva collects from the Leiva, he'll collect, when the Malva collects from the Lekuchais, he'll even take from the Lekuchais that were sold before the Alva back to Nisa. Why don't you say the Malva would never do that? Because why would the Malva use a puzzle star? We just said a Malva won't want to use a puzzle star because he doesn't want to risk it. We don't say that. The Malva will say, there's no way I'm lending you money on a star that's predated. Write another star B'Tishrei, because if I use a star that's from Nisan, the Dilma Shami Rabbanan, I won't be able to collect it all. There, we're not worried the Malva will say that. Because there's something in it, there's something for the Malva to benefit by having a predated star. The Malva gains as well. The Qatar Lakuchas, Minister Matishrei. Therefore, since there's something in it for the Malva as well, because it's a star that's predated 6 months, so now he can collect from the Kuchas even from 6 months ago, the Malva will say, okay, Nishkeferlich, so I'll use a possible star, because he has to benefit. But Haka, it's only 1 day, it's the same day. There's zero benefit to the Malva to use this possible star. Haka, even the Leslie Ravka, the star is dated today, but if it's a possible star, Ma'ika the Qatar of the Kuchas, he's not going to bother with that because he has nothing to gain. He has nothing to gain and everything to lose. So therefore, you're never worried about a star that's dated that day that it was cause of Lil Voice Lava, or that it's paid back and he wants to use it again. You're not concerned about that at all. You're only concerned about that if it's predated significantly, where the Malva wouldn't say anything because he benefits from it as well. What does it mean? Rashi, if you're going to deny that you owe money, Kesuba, that's a Tnai Bezdin. The fact that someone has to support his wife and her daughters, that's a Tnai Bezdin. So if someone says I paid, but I don't have Aiden to prove that I paid, he's not trusted, and we force him to pay. So in other words, if a guy says I paid my Kesuba already, we don't believe it. My time, what's the reason? Because Kol Maisa Bezdin command the Nokid Star Biyadedam. Anytime there's a Maisa Bezdin, like Kesuba, it's as if she's holding the Kesuba in her hand. So really what we're saying here is that Loy Kasvin and Shoiver. In other words, he doesn't have a right. Or actually we say Kasvin and Shoiver. He has to have a receipt to prove that he paid. If he doesn't have proof that he paid, we don't trust him that he paid, even though she doesn't have the Kesuba in her hand. So this is the sheet of Koisvin Shoiver. You do write a receipt for the husband once he pays the Kesuba, because if he doesn't have a receipt, even without a get, even without a Kesuba, she could still collect from him. Zok Gemara, my timer, Kol Ma'isa Bezdin, command the Nokid Shtora B'Yadei Dami. It's as if she has the Kesuba in her hand, even though she does not. Isn't that our Mishnah? It says, I'd see a get. It's a Mishnah in Kesubas, I believe. I'd see a get. She pulled out a get. The Ein Imoi Kesuba, and she does not have the Kesuba. Nevertheless, Goive Kesuba, so she can collect the Kesuba with the get, because once she's divorced, we know there's a Tanai Bezdin that she's owed the Kesuba. Amr Lei, he told him, Ilav the Loi Lachaspa, if I wouldn't have taken the shard to uncover the beautiful thing that's you can discover below the shard, you wouldn't have found the beautiful halacha that now you found over here after. And what is the beautiful halacha that you found? You found the halacha that even if she doesn't have the ksuba, she still gets the month. If sure, you found it in the Mishnah, but I not brought it to your attention, you might not have noticed. Amr Abai, my Marganisa. What is the big Marganisa? What's the great halacha that we learned? Maybe you don't have a raya from here at all from the Mishnah. Dilma b'mokoim she'ein kosin ksuba askinon. Maybe where do we have the halacha of the Mishnah that a woman can collect the ksuba with her get, even though she does not present the ksuba certificate? That's in a place where the minig was they didn't write ksuba at all. It was just known that that's the chiyuv, but it was never written in the shar, so she never had a ksuba. So the only way for her to collect the ksuba is with the get. So the get her get is her ksuba. That's her proof that she's owed money. But who said that in the place where she does have a ksuba, who said there she doesn't have to present it? Inikita ksuba gavi, iloi loi gavi. So in other words, um,
Don't write it. How do they know that he gave it?
sorry,
The minute is not to write it. I didn't know that.
because it's automatic. Any woman that's married is entitled to it, and therefore any woman that gets divorced can get it.
Normally, if she has a ksuba and he pays, she gives.
You know how he proves that he paid? He needs a receipt. You write a shover. So that's what this discussion really is. Do we write a shover so that the husband will have proof that he paid? So you don't have a right from the. You said you know it from the Mishnah. You don't know it from the Mishnah because maybe the Mishnah is speaking in the case b'makom shein koshim ksuba askinan. You want to say even b'makom shekoshim ksuba because it's a t'nai bezdin. You don't have to present the ksuba. But for the Mishnah, you only see that in the place where the minik was not to write the ksuba, that's what you need. So dilma b'makom shein koshim ksuba askinan to get on the ksubasa. Al b'makom shekoshim ksuba, maybe she would have to bring the ksuba. Inakita ksuba gavi. Eloi loy gavi. Hadar Amar Abaye, then Abaye said that's not even a kasha. You know why? Lav milsi damri. It's not a raya. The Yisol Kedaitach, b'makam she'ein kosin ksuba askinan. If you're going to tell me that when does the Mishnah say she can collect with the get, that's in a place we didn't write the ksuba. Avu b'makam she'kosin ksuba. But in a place where they did write the ksuba, in the kita ksuba gavi eloi loy gavi, that wouldn't help. Because what about an almanim in the Eirsin? The halacha is, when the woman gets the ksuba, she gets it by the nesuin. So a woman who lost her husband during Eirsin, she never got the ksuba certificate, yet we know the husband is still mechuyev to give her the ksuba. He just hasn't given her the certificate yet. So even if you hold that you normally write a ksuba, for sure a woman who's in a rusha does not have the shtar ksuba. And if her husband dies, or if her husband divorces her, she can collect ksuba merely with the get, because she doesn't have a ksuba. So Zok to Gemara, Almanim in the Eirsin, b'may gavi. Only the Ada Misa Sabal. I'm sorry, not divorce. She died. Once she brings Adam to the estate that her husband died, she can now collect the ksuba from the estate. Why can't the Yisayim say, Litain v'lema pratia? Elamai, you have a raya. Elamai, you have a raya that Ma'aseh Bezdin, you can't find a parati. Frankly, who said v'chitem hachanami? Maybe in fact the Yershim could say parati. You're making an assumption that they can't. Maybe they could. Zok Gemara because Kain mahailu chachamim b'takanosim. So then there'll never be a case. The Rabbanan said that an almanim in the Eirsin gets ksuba, but if you could always tie the parati, they never will be able to collect ksuba because they'll never have the ksuba itself, and the Yisraelim will always be able to tie the parati. So it must be that since it's a Ma'aseh Bezdin, even without the ksuba they get it, and you can't tie the parati, which was the original Yisoid that the Gemara said. Amar Makashisha Berei the Rav Chisda the Rav Ashi. So you brought your raya from Almanim in the Eirsin that it must be that it's Vibalt, it's a Ma'aseh Bezdin, you can collect on it even though she doesn't have a ksuba. Now, but that's all based on the assumption that an Almana from the Eirsin gets ksuba. Correct the Gemara, Almanim in the Eirsin, the Islik ksuba, we're mamish going off from tangent to tangent to tangent. Almanim in the Eirsin, the Islik ksuba minola. How do you know that she even gets ksuba? How do you know that a woman who's only in a rusa and her husband dies, how do you know she gets ksuba? If the source of the halacha of ksuba is from the following Mishnah, nisarmala niskarsha, if a woman becomes an almana or she becomes divorced, bein mina erisin ubein mina nesuin goyves hakoil. Who said that means by default every arusa gets ksuba? Dil mahecha de kasavla. Maybe that's where he wrote special for her that I'm going to give you. The norm is that you don't write anything up before the nesuin. But maybe this Mishnah that says that he has to pay her is speaking in the case where he did. So you don't have a raya yet that the default is that the almana min the Eirsin gets ksuba. And if you're going to tell me the Mishnah needs to tell you that if he made a special Tanai and he accepted upon himself a special contract to give her Kesuba, Mina Erison, that he has to pay. I mean, I don't need a Mishnah to tell me that. The Mishnah obviously told me a Chiddush, that it's by default that way, even if it wasn't written. So no, there's a very big Chiddush in telling me that he has to pay the Kesuba, even though he has a contract. La Fukim with Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah, because Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah argues the Amar Shalai of law Ella Almanas Lakaitza. Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah holds that even if he writes a Kesuba and he gives it to her as an Arusa, which is not the norm, he still doesn't have to pay her Kesuba if he ends up dying or divorcing her before the Nisuin. Because even though he gave her that Kesuba, his das was only because he's going to be living with her. He's going to be married to her. Had he known that he was never going to end up living with her and won't go through with the Nisuin because either he'll divorce her or he'll die, under those conditions, he never gave it to her. So, Kamash Malam, that no, if he writes it that he's mechayiv himself to give her, he has to give it to her. But you still don't have a raya that by default, al Tatnai Bezdin, the Almonim and the Erison gets a Kesuba. And that's what you need. Strichel, you need it to tell us that we don't pass like Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah, Dekanami. And I think it's Meduyak that it's just telling us to avoid Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah. The Katani Goive Esakoil. Goive Esakoil is an inclusive language. We know that there's an Almana gets a Mona and a Besula gets Mosayim, but there's always extra that's added to the Kesuba as an extra Tanai, right? That's not part of the base Kesuba. That's only because somebody will on his own decide to add to the Kesuba, right? And that happens. So, Oibazoi, what's the lesson of Goiv Esakoil? If it's just the base Kesuba, the Bride should have said, Nis Armala, Nis Garsha, Ben Menasuin, Goiv Kesubasa. But that was a Sakoil. It's mashma clearly that he wrote a special Kesuba and he gave into Kesuba a lot more than what the base was. That's Lashon HaKoil. The cost of law, that makes sense why it says Goiv Esakoil. Zokt Rashi, Bein Kesuba Shal Shnai Bezdin, Tanimana Lamana Masayim Lebsula, Bein Toisvis. That's why it's HaKoil, it's inclusive. If it's just a base Kesuba that we're discussing over here, and it's speaking where he didn't write it for her a special, my Goiv Esakoil. What do you mean it's HaKoil? What is that HaKoil you're talking about? It's merely Mana Umasayim Huda Isla. It's just a basic package. It's a basic package. And therefore, from the Bryce using the wording, from the Mishnah using the wording, Goiv Esakoil, it's clearly that he wrote a special Kesuba there. So therefore, you wouldn't have a raya from this Mishnah that the Kesuba, which is a Tanai Bezdin, is payable. The Ella midatani Rav Chia bar Ami. Ishtay Arusa. If a man is married to a woman, but she's not a Nesua, she's only an Arusa. So loy oinen, if he's a Kayin, loy oinen, he will not become an oinen for her. Well, which means he's allowed to eat kachim. Normally, an oinen may not eat kachim, but since she's not Nesua, she's only a Arusa, he can eat kachim, the kohen. He's not allowed to be metama because it says in the pasuk, "Who can the kohen be metama to? Kim l'sheiroi akar be'lov." L'sheiroi is only if there's kira basar. It's only if they're living together already. So he wouldn't be able to be metama to her. He loy einenes. So too she does not become an oinen, and v'loy metama loy. Well, the question is, what do you mean she can't be metama for him? A bas kohen, even a kehenes, someone married to a kohen, has no prohibition from becoming tamei. So what do you mean v'loy metama loy? So Rashi says there's a chiyuv for people to get involved in the burial of their loved ones, and she's not considered married to him because she's only a Arusa, not Nesua, and she wouldn't be mechuyev to become tamei for him. Mesa, if she dies, Eino Yarsha, he doesn't yarshin her. Zokt Rashi, why? The Yerushas Habal Nafkulad Mishe'era Yakarv Elov Mimishpachtav Yarsha. So once again, it's only once there's already Kir of Boss or once they're living together. Mace who? But if he dies, Goivek Subasa, she still gets to collect her Kesuba. So you have another place that shows that even though she was only in Arusa, she gets Kesuba. Correct Gemara, why is that any better raya than the price we just brought? Maybe there as well. Dilma, the Kosovo law. Maybe that's also the case where it was written. V'chitema, either Kosovo law, my lememra, and if you can tell me what's the chiddush in that, the chiddush is that Mesa in a Yarsha, that if she dies, he doesn't yarshin her, it's strichele. That's what you need the price for. Ella Abaya migufa de masnisin kahadabe. Abaya originally said that it's not a raya from the Mishnah because what did Abaya say over here? Lav milta had amri. Yisal kedaitach mimakam shein kaisum ksuba askinon. Avul mimakam shekaisum ksuba. But in the place where they write the ksuba, right? That's what Abai said there. Now Abai is saying no. If you're going to say that the Mishnah there that says that she's goiva without the ksuba is only in a case where they don't write ksubas, the get taina ksubasa, that wouldn't be a good taina. You know why? Because ought to get mana umasayim ksivbe. It doesn't say anything in the get how much he has to give her. In the ksuba it says how much he has to give her. It doesn't say in the get. Oh, so that's the whole vort. But it doesn't say that. So how do we know to get? And if you're going to say, like Madi says, since the Rabbanon made a takana that an almana gets mana and the b'shula gets b'sayim, it's command the kasa beidame. It's as if it was written in it. Well, litain v'lema paraiti. Why can't the husband say paraiti? V'chi tema. And if you're going to say the amrinan lay I parata, if you paid her already, I boiler the makare, you should have torn up her get. So the question, why you need them to say paraiti?
Basically, he's asking what do we has.
The what?
There's no proof otherwise. Now we're going to get to that. He writes a shayla.
Right. So that's how it. So that's why we're proving that in fact the Tanai Bezdin is enforceable, even though there's no ksuba over here. Why? Because why can't he? Otherwise, you would ask, why couldn't he say paraiti, even if it's in a place where
No shaver.
no? So why can't he say paraiti? Prove it that I owe the money. Prove it that I owe the money, because you have the get mechdesa.
Right. I have the get.
So the question is, why is it a right if you have the get? Because he boiled the makari. You since they have the get, since I'm collecting with the get, the same way if I would collect with the ksuba, you would demand the ksuba, and you tear up the ksuba. If you're collecting with the get, I could demand the get. So Zok Gemara, sorry, for what?
To get married.
Oh, very good. Amrlan, he'll tell us you can't blame me for not tearing up the get. Loishav Kasan. She wouldn't let me tear up the get because Amra, she told me, but Ina Lin Subebe, I need the get. So Oibazoi, why am I not believed to say paraiti? There's nothing that I could have done. There's nothing I could have done. V'chitema amrinale. And if you're going to tell him, we tell him, Iboilach lemakari, you should have torn up the get. So now it cannot be collected with. Umichtav agabegita, umichtav agabe, and write on the get to tear it up. Don't disintegrate and burn it. Just slice it up and tear it, which is what they do right after the get. They slice it up and tear it, and then write on the get umichtav agabe, and it means have bezdin write on it. Gita denan the karanua. This get that we tore up, loy mishum the gita psulahu. It wasn't a puzzle get. Ela ki heichad leitikvi beziv nachriti. So that's what he should have done. He should have spoiled the get, have bezdin write on it that this woman can get married with this get because she can get married with this get because it's a legitimate get, and we only damaged it to show that the husband paid the ksuba already. Zok to Gemara, that's not a tiny either.
See while you're at it.
Yeah, right.
Zok to Gemara, Atu called the migvi beveitina migvi. Who said that he paid her the ksuba and bezdin? Maybe he paid her the ksuba out of bezdin, and he couldn't. So this guy's an innocent guy, yet nevertheless, the Mishnah says he still has to pay. So you have a raya that kol ma'isa bezdin. Anytime you have a t'nai bezdin, what was the lashon that he said? Kol ma'isa bezdin, amatoy nacha ma'isa bezdin, lo amar klum. Even though really this guy's in a tight spot, and be'etzim he has a good excuse as to why he did all his due diligence, he couldn't have done anything differently. Nevertheless, you still collect from him. But maybe it's a mokum shen kosher b'shoiver, right? So, or he should have got the receipt. But that's the whole part. The part is, the way Tosfos explains it is, yes, he could have gotten the receipt. So therefore, kol ma'isa bezdin puts the onus on him. That's exactly the point. The onus is on him. And in fact, he would need a receipt. And that's why he has to pay. But that is the whole vart. If you would say that Atoin Acher Ma'isa Bezdin works, so then the onus is on her to prove that it wasn't paid. What we're saying is, since it's a T'nai Bezdin, that I'm a Chuyin Kesuba, the onus is on me. And since I couldn't hold on to the get, then I should have had to have her produce a receipt. Indeed, that would have been the case. Kabbalah, exactly more weiter. This is a Mishnah that we actually learned already in the last 2 days, so it's just a Chazara. Matzah gitei noshim, v'shechrua avodim, daitiki matana v'shoivrin, harein lo yachzer. All of these should not be returned. Shani Omer, we need to be concerned. Ksuvim hayu, they could have been written. The guy could have written a get, but he decided not to give it. He could have written a shikhr. He didn't want to give it. All these things he might have written them, but not decide to give it. The whole problem here is we're afraid that the husband didn't want to give the get, the husband didn't want to free the eved, the person didn't want to give the matan. But what if he tells us, what if he said, no, give it to them. Give him the shtar matana, give her the get. In other words, he says, I did give it. So we don't have a concern anymore that he changed his mind. Nice. Even if it's a long time later. Zokrashi, even if it's found much later. So even if the date on the get might be a long time ago, and when they found it, it's a much older get, you don't have to be worried that this is someone else's get. You could give it back. Or many fact Gemara, Hamevi get. Someone brings a get, meaning he's a shliach to bring a get. And he lost the get. The shliach lost the get. And matzah la'alter, if he finds it right away, the get is still kosher. But if he lost it for a long time, it's possible because maybe the get that he found wasn't the get that he dropped. Dr. Rashi, matzah la'alter, Hasam Mafarish, there in Gittin the Gemara explains, what is la'alter? Kadesh tavar shayar v'tishra. It's literally the amount of time it takes for a train to pull through the station. Ubesoich kach, in such a short period of time, it's not likely that it fell from the caravan that just left from the train, they just pulled out of the station. The train went through the station, it didn't stop. So it's not likely that anybody else was here that could have dropped a similar get. So, Frag the Gemara, you see, we are choshit lizman meruba, because if the shliach lost the get and it took 5 minutes till he found it, and it's possible that it was swapped out, and this is someone's get, you can't use it. So over here too, it was lying around for a long time. How do you know it's the same get? So kan b'mokum shayaris mitzuyos, kan b'mokum sheina shayaris mitzuyos. Our mission is speaking where there's no shayaris mitzuyos. So even after a long period of time, we'll assume nobody else was there, punked with all the same coordinates. But the mission that we asked the kasha from is speaking where there are shiuris. So therefore, we'll only assume that it's the same get if it happened very quickly. That's who Yosef and Shimon birachas. We're not stamazay that there's someone with exactly the same name who's married to a woman with the same name in the same city. If we know there is such another person, then we have to be choshid that this get is someone else's get. If you're going to tell me that even if we don't know there's another person with the same coordinates in the city, kosher the rabba the rabba, we're going to have a stira in rabba, because rabba said over here, so therefore we're saying rabba must have meant it's only if we have good reason to believe that there's somebody else involved. Why is that? They found a get in the vicinity of Rav Huna's bezin. Rashi says, now, he was a dayan, so his place was a pretty busy place. It would be considered shiras mitzuyos. Rav Huna's bezin was a busy place. It said in the get, B'Shviri Masa, in the city of Shviri, the Al Rochis Nahara, which was on the banks of the river Rochis. That's what it said there. And Omar Rav Huna paskin on this get, Chayshinon Lishnei Shviri. We have a concern here. We can't give this get back because it's possible that this get was written for somebody else. As Rashi says, even though someone says this is the get that fell for me, and this person was the one who sent it with me to his wife, and we know there is no other person that has the same name as this fellow in this city. Still, Chayshinon Shemesh Shviri Acheres Yesh, and maybe there's another Shviri city. In this city of Shviri, there was no other Yosef and Shimon. But maybe there's another Shviri somewhere. Maybe there's another city somewhere with the same name. And in that city, V'yeshba Yosef and Shimon Acher. That's what the Funa said. The Omer of Chisda, 650, we'll stop here. We're a full blot and a half ahead. So I'm hoping by the end of Shabbos, we will, if we do on Shabbos a blot and a half, then we'll be 2 blot ahead and then we'll be good to go.
Why don't you just get someone to say a share?
Daniel's planning to say sure anyway. But I don't want to miss. Because Shabbos Zohar is hard and Purim is hard. So this way on Monday we'll continue. Because Sunday's going to be very hard to find the time to say sure anyway, right? But you're right. Why do I don't know. I just have this joke. I can't miss a day. Okay, everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful day. So we know now in Canada, Shechita is under attack. You know that. Shechita is under attack. We know now that the Canadian government wants to make an embargo on Israel because they're the bad guys.
But Canada supplies. What embargo are they trying?
Beer, maybe.
Like, what do they supply? Who cares?
What's the big deal?
Yeah, who cares? It's just the statement.
Would you like to know? I will tell you. I booked a ticket for my son after Pesach on Air Canada to go to Israel. The flight was canceled. I have a feeling that it has to do with embargo, even though they're not admitting it. But now Air Canada says the best we can do for you is fly you to Europe and get you a connecting flight with Lufthansa.
The second flight.
At least they're following through.
But Air Canada is not flying to Israel.
Didn't they just announce that Air Canada's?
Yes, but I have a feeling that their anti-Semitism is playing here. This embargo. Embargo means they do nothing. They'll have nothing to do with Israel. It's like such a chutzpah. It's such a chutzpah. And do you see Moshe Krieger's letter? He wrote a beautiful letter to Yarizak. You know Yarizak went with a Shanta number 1. What's in Melanie Jolie or something? And they went to meet with Arafat yesterday, with Abbas. She's a Jewish lady. So Moshe Krieger wrote a beautiful, beautiful letter. Beautiful, beautiful letter. And I told Moshe Krieger, you forgot about the other law that they made, that hate speech, you can get locked up for the rest of your life. They're allowed to throw you into jail for life over hate speech, and they decide what hate speech is. So your letter, they might consider to be hate speech. You might be going to jail. So let me read Moshe's letter. It's a beautiful letter. Ms. Sachs, as my elected representative in Parliament, I'm deeply disappointed in both your government's position and your own lack of standing up for the truth. There is no moral equivalency between a planned murder or rape as an act of terror and the response to prevent it from happening again. Hamas took and publicized videos of rapes, torture, and slaughter for all the world to watch. They glorified those acts. This is indisputable. Hamas is a recognized terror organization. It has acknowledged and lauded its despicable acts on October 7th. It has openly stated its desire to repeat these acts if given the chance to do so. No remorse has been shown by any of the Palestinian leadership. None at all. Not just terrorists participated in these acts, but civilians and members of UNRWA. These facts are documented and are indisputable. Israel is the only democracy in the entire Middle East. Elections in the autocratic surrounding them are predetermined. Of all the countries in the region, only Israel allows Jews, Christians, and Muslims to be citizens with full rights to education, healthcare, and voting. If an Israeli soldier commits a crime, then he or she will be tried for that act, just as one would expect from a democratic government. So he goes on that, of course, there's no way, because I don't know if you know, the Canadian government just promised that they're giving millions of dollars to help victims, Palestinian victims of Israeli rapes. Do you know that? And that's what she went. She went to bring the money to announce that she's giving millions of dollars of Canadian dollars to help the victims of the Israeli. How many victims do you think there are?
Are there any?
So it's such a chutzpah. I see from the picture attached, the UN, it's very good. It's Minister Jolie. So I see from the picture, UN monster Jolie have befriended the Palestinian leader Abbas.
But what is he thinks he's going to do if anything like this letter?
I don't know, knowing that doing so puts you in the company of someone who not only has not condemned the acts of October 7th, but who competent families of those who murder Jews. By association with him, you are guilty by association. Shame on you as a human being, and shame on you as a Jew. I like that. So he goes on and on, and then
She even get to see it?
I'm sure, basically, she has to realize that this might cost her votes. If she knows that this might cost her the election next time, then maybe she won't do it. Huh? It's true. It's disgusting that she's a Jewish lady, but she's obviously a self-hating Jew.
One from Thornhill.
No, this is Danny. This is Danny Dienna's. This is Danny Dienna's. This is Danny Dienna's Pelegish.